Welcome to the Business Development Podcast, brought to you by the Global Business Development Association, delivering the strategies and tactics to boost your career and corporate growth.
Hello, BD pros, and welcome to the Global Business Development Association podcast called What is Business Development? Now, wouldn't you like to know how some of the most successful firms and leaders create and develop their cultures to encourage business development? You know, if you're a project manager, a lawyer, or an engineer or an accountant, and you're listening to this, there are a lot of professions out there that do not operate with the title of business development, but they are required. They are often driven to building business for their corporations. And they have that responsibility just like business developers do. They just don't have the business development title. And a lot of you listening are probably in the same exact situation. And today we're going to talk about how law firms can grow their business through top business development tactics and marketing tactics with our guest today, who's Deborah Farone. And Deborah has spent her career doing what she loves, which is helping lawyers and other leaders grow their practices and their teams by creating and leading marketing departments for two of the world's most respected law firms. And she also served as a chief business development officer for one of those firms. She takes all of that experience, and today she works with law firms, consulting firms, and C-suite professionals to build and restructure marketing teams for maximum impact, create business development and marketing plans that win work, and coach a select number of motivated partners and CMOs to deepen relationships and drive results. Well, we're going to talk about her book today, which will help you drive results. And the name of her book is Best Practices in Law Firm Business Development and Marketing. So let me welcome to the show, Deborah Farone. Deborah, thank you for joining us.
It's so nice to be here, Tony. And I've heard so many great things about this podcast. I've started to be an avid listener.
Oh, well, thank you, Deborah. That's very kind of you to say that. So, Deborah, let's start off by just getting a sense of how did you enter the business development profession and eventually make it to Chief Business Development Officer, which is really the pinnacle of our profession. It's either CBDO or Chief Growth Officer. That's another leading title for business developers. But how did you enter the profession?
Well, I was fortunate enough to get a great job out of college, and I worked at Ketchum Communications, which did both PR and advertising. And although I had a range of clients, one of the clients I was assigned was a law firm. And the laws had just changed. We were just allowed to start to actually market law firms. And I fell in love with the idea of helping lawyers. I felt that they were involved in interesting matters. The matters were different. I thought working with the professional service firm was a great idea. So that was really the beginning. And although I was hired away by a management consulting firm, I eventually became one of the first chief marketing officers on the East Coast, working for a firm called Deborah Voice. A great experience. I was there for 14 years and then hired by Cravath, which was another wonderful firm, often referred to as the world's most prestigious law firm. And so my job was to help lawyers who were already uber successful find ways to be even more successful.
Wow, that's great, Deborah. And it shows an interesting pathway for a business developer who really rises through the ranks into the chief marketing officer role and then becomes chief business development officer. And I think, you know, our profession has evolved so quickly over the past 20 years. And the entry point into our profession, a lot of people enter our profession not as a business development representative or a salesperson. They enter through the marketing or operations. And there are a lot of varied pathways into our profession. And so yours is quite interesting because it shows that marketing pathway into an industry that I think a lot of folks may not realize is so driven by business development, like all firms, but now they have clear roles in law firms for business developers, not just full-time attorneys. So this is really interesting. So what drove you to write your book?
Well, I actually ended up writing 2 books. When I decided it was time to leave Cravath, I wanted to write kind of what the best practices were that I had seen while I was at that amazing firm. And so I interviewed people around the country and really found out best practices for both mid-sized firms, some smaller firms, and large firms. And I also spoke with people in Europe and Asia. So I wrote a book called Best Practices. And then most recently, I had been finding that there were still lawyers out there who didn't know how to develop business, but there were others who were great rainmakers. And in particular, I saw this happening with women, that women didn't have as many role models. There weren't as many women at the top of law firms. There are less than 25% of law firms that are led by women in the AmLaw 200. So it's a very small number. And I wanted to be able to find those women that were great rainmakers and get their advice so that we could give it to women who wanted to drive business and to others, not just necessarily women. And so that's really what drove me to write the second book.
Well, you're a wonderful role model, and it's great to see all of those teachings from the folks that have succeeded in the legal profession in business development be represented in this book. So I love to just jump right into the book right now, and let's identify the top 3 takeaways or top 3 tactics from the book. Can we do that?
Sure. In thinking about this, there were 3 themes that kept on coming out, and they resonated whether I was speaking to someone from Botswana or someone from Milan or someone from Asia. I mean, it was incredible, but I found that the women that were most successful, that really felt confident in developing business, had a sense of authenticity. They really knew themselves well. And maybe that came after years of trying different things, but they had tried different ways of marketing. And I think that's a good tip for people. The different kinds of marketing work for different people. Someone might like public speaking. Another person might like doing referral marketing, where they're talking to their existing clients and getting to know friends of friends. And so that marketing really needs to be authentic. And one of the women that I spoke with, who is based in Milan, her name is Annalisa Reale, is incredible. She grew up as a wonderful musician, and she played violin. And what she does for business development is something that she loves. She takes people to the opera. La Scala, the famed opera house, is right down the street from her office, and she often invites clients and their spouses and their families. And so being authentic and finding what you love, what makes you happy, what you're passionate about, I think is so important when developing business. So I would tell people out there, give a couple of things a try and think about what you really love doing, because clients will know that, they'll sense that, and it makes marketing much easier. And I think, the second thing is that we've learned that great developers of business develop it over time. It's usually not the phone call that you get because your bio is beautiful on the web, and it's not because you have a great LinkedIn profile. And while you need all of those things, those are kind of table stakes. You really need to be connecting with people over time and starting when you're young. And so my advice is you're never too young to start connecting with people. And although you might believe in having a shorter sales funnel, and a lot of people do that, very often your business comes from those 2nd-degree contacts and 3rd-degree contacts. And Nicholas Christakis has written quite a bit about this. And it's fascinating when you think about your network, not just only the people that you know, but the people that they know. And lastly, I would say developing a niche. All of these incredible women and the men that I spoke with were very good about defining what they do. And I think this is true for lawyers, but I also think it's true for bankers and architects and really any profession, to think about what it is that you do that's so different or better than the person next door. Or what is it that makes you special? Is it that you've done these 5 deals in a certain area that are unique? Or is it that you love big, messy, complicated litigations? Figuring that out and then looking to see if there's a marketplace for it is so essential. And then seeing where those things meet. And so my advice on that point is draw 2 circles, make a Venn diagram, an old-fashioned Venn diagram, and in one circle put all the things that you really love doing. And then on the other circle, think about the marketplace and what the marketplace is today, and do a little forecasting for the future. And where those things bump up, that's your niche. And you'll really be able to do well once you have that.
Yeah. Okay. So a lot to unpack there. The first one is identifying the tactics that work for you, right? There are plenty of business development tactics that are out there. Obviously, you have, I think, a lot of those good tactics in your book that people can reference. They're in the business development body of knowledge, and that's available at the GBDA website for the folks that want to pursue their business development professional certification. There are a lot of tactics out there, and some tactics just don't work for some people. And it could be because of their skill set. They're not proficient at it. That's one thing, but it also may be something that they're just not comfortable with. Some people are just not comfortable making cold calls or doing cold drop-ins, but they're really comfortable going to a social event or a networking event within their industry and having conversations with people and meeting new contacts, meeting new prospects in those venues. Or they might really like the opera and enjoy networking with people at the opera. It's finding the tactic that really resonates with you and also delivers the results. Yeah, you could be somebody who loves the opera, but if that never pans out for you, then your senior partners may have a question or two about your expense account, really supporting your hobby or your interest. They have to deliver results as well, right? And so I think the key takeaway here is really good, because so many times I think business developers or people who have a business development responsibility think they have to follow all of these tactics. And here's the thing: if you follow all those tactics, you'll probably never have time to execute any one of them really well. It's good. And I think the other key takeaway from you was try them, see if they work, see if they deliver the results. And this is where I think a coach like you really helps, because you can kind of be that candid third-party assessment to say, okay, you say you tried the tactic, but what did you actually do? And let's walk through, are you competent? First of all, are you competent about the tactic? And second of all, are you proficient at it? Okay, if you were not competent and you were not proficient, then that's probably why you had the bad result. But look, if you did it competently, you did it proficiently, but it's still not panning out, it's probably just not your thing. You're probably just not good at it, or it may not be right for your target ideal customer profile. So walking through those, testing those out, and really finding the right tactical tool to put in your tool belt is a key takeaway. Are there any things when you're guiding your clients, do you kind of lay out a whole list of tactics to them? Do you say, hey, try this first, then try that? Do you kind of give them a tactical toolkit? How do you actually recommend that people kind of proceed through this?
It's interesting. Most of my practice is working with the firms as a whole on business development, but I take on about 8 coaching clients a year. That's really all I have time for. But we always start with strategy. I am such a big believer in strategy before tactics. Figuring out the niche, figuring out what you want to be, where your clients are, how they make buying decisions. Those things are so important. So that, for instance, if you have a practice that involves the arts and you loved the opera, yes, taking people to the opera and to dinner afterwards. that might be the right approach. But if you're a litigator, it will be much tougher to figure out who the client is. And maybe you're going to want to do more broadcasting than narrowcasting marketing. Maybe you'll want to give more speeches to a perfect industry publication or a seminar that's going on. So it really depends on what the strategy is, right? As good marketers, you and I know a million different tactics, but a million different tactics are not great to even think about by one human being. You really need to know the strategy first. So that's what I really dig in first and find out.
Yeah, well, that reminds me of the great warrior philosopher Sun Tzu's quote that says, "Tactics are just the noise before defeat." Without strategy,
That's right.
right? You
That's
need
right.
you need strategy. You need an overarching strategy.
And the worst is when you hear from someone, "I've been so busy trying all these different ways to develop business and nothing's working." And you need to dig into, well, who is the potential client you're trying to get? Where are they? Where are they paying attention? What matters to them? I mean, there are a whole bunch of things you need to know before you spend your time. And lawyers, bill by the minute. So the time becomes so important, and making sure that you're spending it the right way.
Okay, great. So that's tactic number one, is pick the right tactics that align with your strategy that will be successful. Okay, great. So let's talk about tactic number two. And I think tactic number two you mentioned was networking and cultivating those first, second, and third degree connections. And doing that in an authentic way where they are the right fit for you. But let's dig into that a little bit deeper, because we all know about the first level connections.
Right.
Those folks that kind of are our go-tos, those people who are partners of ours, clients that refer us on a regular basis. But you're also mentioning the second and third level connections. How are you recommending that people connect on a second and third order level? Just through LinkedIn and just finding second level connections and connecting with them that way? Or is it something a little bit deeper?
I think part of it is being open to meeting new people. So if my friend who is at Deloitte invites me to an event, granted, that might not be my key audience. I mainly work with lawyers right now, but I get up and I go because friends of my friends are going to have similar interests. So that's one way. I think second, doing really amazing work, doing, such great work that people will talk about their work with you is priceless. And that's a very high threshold, right? I think it was Reichholz who said, you have to really overjoy your clients in order to get them to talk about you. And I think that's part of it, and if a lawyer comes to me and says, I only have an hour a week to spend on business development, I'll tell them to be serving their clients, do a great job first. There's no better source of business. I'm very good at talking myself out of a client when I tell them, but I tell them honestly, spend time with your clients, make sure you're really making them delighted with your work. And then I do believe in LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is fantastic. I think making sure that you are connecting with new people, but most importantly, that you're providing really wonderful content that's going to help someone out there, having an idea of what it is that you're providing, give away free content. I'm a believer that you should be out there helping people. And if you have that helping mindset, it just happens. But it's difficult to kind of put your finger on what builds a reputation. I think it's doing great work. I think it's connecting with people. And I think it's being open, to joining new networks and to getting to know people.
Yeah, well, and I always like to emphasize the power of existing customers, particularly those that are very fond of your work. It really speaks to the definition of business development, which is customer and community advocacy that creates corporate growth, which is a double entendre. I've talked about it many times on the show. It's the definition that's in the business development body of knowledge that says, yes, we must advocate for our customers and our community in order for them to achieve success. Now, the flip side of that meaning is that if you do a great job for them, they will be a great advocate for you to their network of connections. And so if you do business development the right way, you won't have to do business development.
Right.
Your customers will be your best business developers. They will bring the referrals to you saying, hey, Deborah is fantastic. She's the best coach I've had for business development. I've had huge success. Well, that just brings other people to the door. And those are the second and third connections. But I think what you're saying too is also put yourself in a position where you can have those conversations, where your customer can be your advocate in a meeting, in a networking session, at the opera. Invite your client and invite 2 or 3 prospects. That client that loves you will be talking to those 2 prospects saying, wow, Deborah's not only does she love the opera, but she's also a fantastic attorney. And I've done that myself. Is you're essentially creating the network environment. One of the things I do is I keep track of every networking event that I go to, conference, summit, breakfast event, you name it. And then afterward, I'll keep track of what was my return on investment. Did I meet the ideal customer profile? Were they even there in the room? Were they decision makers or not? Did I meet my partners there? That has some value. And then I score them. I have a spreadsheet where I kind of score them based on a weighting that I use. And then at the end of the year, I look at them and I say, okay, which ones are at the top 25%? Those are the events I need to go to next year. And then if there aren't enough of those events, then I've created events, live events, for example, dinner events with existing customers and prospects, getting them in the room. And I really don't have to talk that much. The existing customers that love my work, they speak volumes. And those prospects hear that. The conversion rate on referrals is in some cases over 50% compared to cold calls. And this assumes you're really good at cold calls. It's 3% conversion rate. So you can make 100 calls and get 1 meeting, or you can get a good referral, get 2 referrals, and you'll get a solid meeting on your next one. It's priceless. And I think it also depends on the industry. It depends on the ICP. Yeah, ICP for lawyers, your ideal customer profile. These are high-level decision makers. These are folks that have limited time to be talking to people. They're definitely not going to answer your cold call. So creating those environments where you can have that high-quality engagement, I think, is key, right, Deborah?
I think it's vital. And, we didn't even touch on the idea of share of wallet, right? That if a client hires you to do one thing and they're so delighted, they will hire you back. And so, I've seen as a consultant, I have many of the same clients that I had when I set up my own shop 6 or 7 years ago, because they've hired me for one thing. They know that I did a very good job and delivered, and they'll hire you for something else. Or I'll be hired to do a law firm retreat and speak to partners, but then they'll have me back to speak to associates. And it might be a whole different topic related to business development. But that's wonderful because you really get to know a client. You really get to like them. You get to know their culture, and it just becomes frictionless when you're doing work with them. So, those are the things we kind of hope for as professionals. And I try to think my clients want the same thing.
Yeah, well, and so many times people think business development, well, that's just to bring in new accounts, right? No. Right. You talk about the share of wallet, and those are your best customers because you already have the relationship. Now you're identifying pain points for them, you're identifying solutions for them, and if they were happy already, they'll be even happier as you provide more value to them. So, business developers, we sometimes get shut out. Once the deal is converted, they go from being a prospect to being a customer. Operations folks think, okay, well, BD people, you just run away and go find more leads for me. No, because we can help grow those existing accounts for you by the relationships that we're building, and we're identifying those opportunities to expand the network and leverage those referrals. So, wow, wonderful tactic number 2, which is networking from a position of a giving place, right? At the end of the day, it's all about how much value can we give to our existing customers. Okay, Deborah, last one, let's dig into the final tactic that you talked about, which is, kind of alluded to, it's this place of authentic giving, creating content that really provides value. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Oh, sure. I mean, I think, once you have a niche in place, once you are aware of how you want to promote your business and what your business is, what your best use is, it's so important to think, who is my client? Who is my potential client? Who's the potential referral source out there? And to provide them with information. And I'm not a big direct mail person. I don't believe in doing it all the time. I don't believe in reaching out to my clients with lots of materials, but I do try to do it selectively. So if I hear from a client and that they're interested in something, and I hear it from a second source, then I start thinking, well, wait a second, maybe there's a need for something. Let me address that. And what's nice about doing LinkedIn every week is that every weekend I need to sit down and think, what are the pain points? What are those things that are bothering my clients or my prospects? Is it that they're overworked? Maybe I should do something on time management. And no, I'm not a time management coach, but I've worked with people who have had issues getting work done and issues doing business development. What can I add? Or I'll speak with a firm that is having some issue with hiring great, speakers for programs. And I'll hear about it again and again. And so I'll prepare content on how you go about hiring the speaker, what the questions you want to ask are, what the follow-up should be, what should be in the contract. And so I'm really looking for those pain points that are important to people, that are both within my niche and within the marketplace. And I do the same with my clients, whether it's an issue dealing with, new edicts coming from the government, and they know that their clients are concerned, or if it's about pricing and the use of AI, I try to get them to address those things for their clients and to think about it strategically so that they're not just putting out the same paper, the same document year after year.
Yeah. Deborah, that is great. So many people think, oh, content, I have to be on LinkedIn and I have to crank out content every day, or I have to work with marketing and come up with some bland brochure that I send to all of my clients and prospects. And they're low in value. And I think what you're also saying is it doesn't need to be complex. It doesn't need to be hours and hours of creating some masterful piece of content that's filled with value. It can just be a simple, hey, I think I found a new opportunity for you, Mr. or Mrs. Client. Or, hey, I think I may have found a new attorney. They're looking for a new role and they have a great book of business they can bring to your firm. Are you interested in an intro? I mean, I've done things like that. That's highly personalized. We talk about highly personalized content. That's highly personalized content, folks. That's a lot of value. And talk about your customer being so happy or your prospect being so happy when you're bringing new business to them. You're bringing new talent to them. They love it. They love it. Yeah, you can go ahead and send them that piece of content that you generated with marketing that is valuable. I'm not saying don't do that, but I think what the key takeaway from what you're saying, Deborah, is at the end of the day, always start from a position of giving.
Mm-hmm.
What can really help my prospect? What can really help my client? Well, Deborah, you've really helped us today with your top 3 tactics, and we'll just summarize them real quickly here, folks. Tactic number 1 is, hey, remember what Sun Tzu said, tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. Have a strong strategy for engaging your ICP, and then pick the right tools that you feel comfortable with, that you can be proficient at, and that work and deliver results for you. The second one is networking. Networking from a position of giving, networking with those second and third level relationships, but also more importantly, network with your existing customers. They're your biggest advocates, and they can generate tremendous referral and advocacy for you. And then finally, content from a position of giving. It's not those big, long pieces of email. It's the really thoughtful, even the small things that can make a big difference for your customers. Deborah, I know you make a big difference for a lot of law firms and your clients out there. How can folks follow your work? How can they connect with you?
The best way is probably LinkedIn. They can follow me there. I do post regularly, so that's a great way. And if they want to reach me, it's just Deborah@FaroneAdvisors.com. So either through LinkedIn or through my email would be wonderful.
And don't forget, folks, you could get a copy of Deborah's book. She has a couple of books on Amazon, but Best Practices in Law Firm Business Development and Marketing. It's on Amazon in Kindle, hardcover, paperback. Right. And it's also available on PLI.edu. That's P as in Papa, L as in Lima, I as in India.edu. Check it out there or check it out on Amazon. Very accessible, not just for attorneys, but for anybody that's in the business development profession, particularly professional services. Grab a copy of her book, reach out to Deborah on LinkedIn and follow her work.
And Tony, I should also mention my new book that will be out in January. If people are interested in pre-ordering, they can order it at pli.edu/breakingground, or they can come to my website and get information about it. And in fact, on my website, if you go to it, I think there might even be a discount code. I'll check on that, but we might be able to give your viewers and listeners a discount code. But that's Breaking Ground, and that's coming out very shortly.
All right. Well, I can't wait to read that one shortly here. I think January timeframe is when you plan to publish and go to market, right?
Yep, January, it will be out.
Okay. Well, hey, if you can't wait until then, grab a copy of Deborah's existing book. Again, it's on Amazon and it's on another source we mentioned, pli.edu. Check it out. And that'll be a good preface to what will probably be a holiday present for the next book that comes out in January for a lot of people. So Deborah Farone, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your insights with us today. And thank you for being a real pioneer for so many folks coming after you in the business development profession. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you, Tony. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Business Development Podcast. Join our free community of corporate partners and business development professionals advancing the art, science, and ethics of the business development profession at gbdassociation.org.